Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to PWJ on Facebook. Not Facebook. Not Facebook. Hi. Um, yeah, gosh. You almost forgot. Oh, no, Liz, don't forget. No, don't forget. Um, Hi, Trish. Hi, Darylyn. Hi, Rhonda. And Liz, let me know. Um, yeah, we're getting some snow here, and I'm in Carleton Place, Ontario, Canada, close to our nation's capital, Ottawa. Hi, Pearl, and excuse me. Oh, it's wintry. Hello, Melanie, and yeah. So this is our. Oh, I don't know. I can't remember how many. So some people have a hard time finding it. Maybe that was what Darylyn said. So always the live streams are under the live category on my page. However, and then even after they're finished, they're only saved in the live streams. So I'm just starting to get used to YouTube. And there is a way that I can take the old live streams and put them into the videos category. I just need, like I need to study it for a second. It looks simple and straightforward, but I think it'll be all I have to do is edit out like me talking here on the live stream saying hello to everyone, because live streams are just like that, and just kind of editing a little bit out but then leaving the main body of it. I mean, there will still be some conversation back and forth. I'm not going to edit out those things. And yeah, so then it'll stay in the video section, but it'll still always stay in the live section, I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to try it out on the first one that I did, and hopefully it'll all stay together, and that way I'll have content in all the categories, and there's content in the posts. Now the shorts, I do have plans for that, but I just haven't had a time to get around to it. You can create shorts from already existing videos, but I'm just not there, and I'm gonna create my own from scratch. I know. I just have ideas, and I don't want to do anything else but my own self. uh, Cleveland, yeah, Cleveland gets snow. We're supposed to be getting a lot of snow in southern Ontario, which is quite warm. I mean, we have places in southern Ontario that are just as far south as California. Yeah, where we can, there's a broad range of weather here. It's supposed to get a big dump. And yeah, so right now it's just a rainy, dull, cold day. Cold and wet, Yeah. It's been so dark. My goodness. So this one I did, oh my gosh, a while back on Facebook when I got requested to do watercolors on Facebook. And I've done it a couple of times in person. So I know where I did it first for you guys as a live stream. So you guys got a lot of stuff first, especially the watercolors. But then when I do them live in person, I can see where people have trouble and where people get tripped up and want to overwork it. So the biggest thing with this one is trust the process. It's going to look really messy at first, but trust the process. That's what I'm just, asking you to do. Trust that process. It's really quite like it's just going to look like gobs of paint. And then next thing you know, as soon as you do that foreground and you do those foreground trees and you do that barn, it's going to bring that background into focus and give it context. So it's context. So when you look closely at the background, and this one I don't like, this isn't the original one I did, the prototype, as I say, not we, the royal we. And it's got, I don't tape it down. This is just tape because I'm going to be handling it. So you can see in the background, it's just really, 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 the background trees almost look cloudy. You know, if it's just very, so don't try to overwork it. Like I say, try to stay within the boundaries of where I'm going. Look back at me. Don't just get lost in, just going crazy. Like, look back. I'll help give you guidelines. Guidelines are always great because you don't want any sketching on this. So we want some different heights in that background. So never mind this tree. We're looking at this and then all of these very background ones. We want varying heights, but we don't want overworking. So we don't want it all just to go straight up. Because I've seen people, they start to fill in, I'll say, only go an inch above the horizon. So the horizon is just about here, okay? And I'll say go about an inch above the horizon, but we don't want to see any lines where the horizon is. The horizon is really lost in the background forest. So you see there's no line here where the horizon is, but in your mind, the horizon is halfway back. Okay. And so then we want some coming down low. Now, another thing people do is they'll start filling in greenery down here because they get impatient with waiting for the rest of the group to finish. I had a really big group one time and I'm like, oh my God. Then I have to fill that all back in with white gouache. And that's not cool. So, and I actually didn't because, and I'm like, well, I kind of got them to sort of remove it with some water. You can water it down. And we put like a big tree in front. So those foreground trees will, like I say, it'll bring the context, everything into context. And so we want to do a fairly pale sky. And we do want white gouache. So white gouache, this is by PBO. It's available all over the world. PBO is a French company. It's available on Amazon .ca and .com. PEBEO. Gouache is still considered water soluble and so it's water based and water soluble, but you can't see through it. So it is opaque, which is great for snow. If you're doing winter scenes, I highly recommend this. Blocking agents can be messy. They can gunk up your brush. You need a dedicated blocking agent. I don't use them. Mostly because a lot of people, they can frustrate people. Use them on your own. Go ahead. But I just don't because I'm dealing with so many beginners and often I'm painting with large groups. So I just don't use them. End of story. But yes, gouache is highly recommended. And when the tube, so you can see the tube, if you were to use white watercolor, and white watercolor is really translucent, so you're going to use up your entire tube on one painting. And, economically to buy a separate tube of watercolor costs a lot more. This is approximately $15, give or take, depending on whether it's Canadian or USD or whatever. So much cheaper, and you get 100 mils. And and I tape down my painting for the I tape it down for the when I'm live streaming, just because I'm picking up my painting and moving it around a lot, and I don't have a camera that's dedicated to above the overhead projector camera. Oh my gosh. Because I do acrylics as well, so I'm doing it on the easel. So I'm defying gravity for this. So, and I don't normally, like I say, I don't normally tape it down. Some people want to tape it down to get that edge, but I suggest using a matte frame. Because if you get it a little off kilter, it's not going to look right. And so I'm using I've got this taped down on a fairly big board. This is a, oh my gosh, what is it? 9 by or 11 by 15. So I'm doing a nice big scene. So I've got a good working, this was 9 by 12. So this is 11 by 15. So I've got a good big range to work in so you can see, which is good. It's always good to see. And I'm going to get my camera straightened on a little bit more here. And there we go. It's a little better. And if you have questions, be patient because I'm looking here, not necessarily looking at you. So I'll look back every once in a while and try to answer your questions as best as I can. Now, okay, so I'm going to use a palette like this. So I like to start right from beginner level to help you right from loading my palette. So I'm going to use a palette that's a bit waxy. You can actually reuse any of the paint that's on there. And I'm just going to use that instead of my usual ice cube tray, which is really messy. So that because I want more subtle, so this is my ice cube tray and I reconstitute it. The PPO paints that I use actually reconstitute nicely, meaning they re-wet nicely. Some don't, but I've noticed these ones do. They're really, again, PPO should give me money for advertising for them because they are middle of the road price with a really nice pigment, fairly light, fast, and they reconstitute beautifully. So they last forever. And watercolors, if you buy expensive ones, aren't bad either. So I'm looking for a yellow ochre. Okay. So most sets only have the primaries and the secondary sets, like a regular yellow. So I'm going to just show you how to mix them. That's why I'm also using it on here. So yellow ochre is like Dijon. Okay, so I'm using a regular, this is like a primary yellow or cadmium yellow. And sometimes it'll look a little orange until the light goes through it. Okay, so I'm using that. And I'm going to use umber. So this is burnt umber. Okay, most sets that you have come with a brown. Any brown will do. Raw umber, burnt umber. If you're really like sienna, but a lot of sets don't necessarily come with sienna unless you've got a comprehensive set. So this umber. Now you can't tell by the outside of the paint, okay? It's almost impossible to tell by the outside of the paint because that changes all the time. There's no standardizing like with that. So this is the color we're kind of looking for, this yellow ochre. So it's like a brownish, deep, like Dijon, the fancy mustard. So we're looking for that. Then I'm looking for green, various shades of green. We can have them mix. If you've just got one, say, bright green, like this particular, they call it permanent green. It's just a regular kind of like a Kelly green. Sometimes that's all you have in your set if you have a really super basic set. So I'm going to use that and show you how to kind of mix that and get a natural soft green, because you'll notice all of these are really soft here, and blue. Any blue will do. So the first blue I picked up here was phthalo. Phthalo and Prussian blue are pretty much the same. I get tons of blues in this set. I've got lots of blues in this set. Drives me nuts. So that's pretty much it for the background. And a sepia color is really nice as well. However, sepia doesn't come in every set. If you have, sepia is great. Also like a Payne's gray. They don't come in every set, but sepia is that color like old photographs, that color. And that is done with these colors too. So I just picked out 4 colors. That's it, that's all. And I'll show you what I'm going to do with them. Then for brushes, we need a large brush. I'm going to use my big filbert because I have lots of them. It's just a 1-inch flat. Beginner watercolors beginner watercolor artists, the mop brush is lovely when you're doing backgrounds, especially when you're working flat, but it has a lot of give to it. So beginners tend to put too much pressure on their brush. So I like a little bit of resistance. So you see how it's just giving me that a little resistance in the belly of the brush, just kind of like a beginner hint. You don't have to get perfect brushes. This was bought from the dollar store as a nice set. I just found they were perfect for watercolors because I have to buy lots of them. So they were, you know, pretty cheap for that. Then you need about, oh my gosh, an 11 round or a 10. And that's about it. You really don't need much. Here's my 10. Okay. I bought these from Amazon. Again, they have a little bit of resistance. So that like in the middle, the belly of the brush is the middle. We have the tip, the belly, and the ferrule, which is the metal. And see, this is a really cheap brush. It's by no means a mop brush, but you see, it bends like almost right to the metal. It's like I can almost touch the metal as I'm bending it easily. And that's just kind of not as desirable. Just resist the urge to press hard if you do that. So 2 basic brushes, and that's it for this entire painting. Okay. Resist the urge to wash your brush when you're doing a soft flowy background, because I want all these colors to kind of blend into that lovely sky color and into the background forest. Okay. So resist the urge to wash that brush. Also, you'll need some toilet paper. We'll show you that in a bit. Also, some a little bit of paper towel is all you need, really. But toilet paper is important for watercolors, and I'll show you why later. Don't want to get into that. I want to get into painting. Okay, so stay tuned for the TP update. It's one way to keep the viewership going, eh? Although it stays up for a while, so you can watch it later. Well, it stays up forever, hopefully. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to pull the camera down so you can see what I'm doing here. And so just these 4 colors, and that's going to give me my background. Okay. So you'll see how bright this yellow is. And I'm going to keep those fairly close together. I actually don't need that much, but I will reuse this. So I really don't need much. What stops it from drying out in the tubes is gum arabic. This one does not contain honey. Some of the more expensive ones, they use honey. It gives you just a really nice, nice true form. And you can see it almost looks orange in some light. And then the umber. So I'm going to keep umber fairly close because I want these colors blending. Okay. And I'm going to get some of that blue on there. Again, fairly close. If you have some gravity, and if I wanted to have these separated, I mean, I would probably just use my regular old, I dropped some blue there. That's okay. Blue does a major takeover, so often you don't need much of it. So I resist the urge again when we want these nice blendy bits to have your palette all separate. But if you do have that, then use like a little mixing plate like this. Just make sure you have an under kind of white background, not a clear plate, so that you can see the color. Because if it was clear, I would see all the mess underneath, and it would affect the way the light is bringing the color through. And as promised, I'm going to use that that green. This one is called permanent green. So I don't know why they call it permanent green. I have no idea. Not a clue. So I'm just going to fold this over. And when you get to the ends of your tubes, now I don't because I go through a lot because I'm doing group in-person ones. I'm going to bring the green over here. Just a little bit close to that blue-brown. So you can see it's kind of bright, and I'm not looking for bright at all in any way, shape, or form. I want a soft green. So you can slice open your tubes and just put them in a little, like put a little water in them and then put them in your ice cube tray. And you can reuse them. My hands are quite dyed already because I was doing silk dyeing and washing and everything else. I was actually doing Liz's silk. She's going to send it. So, Rhonda, it doesn't matter as long as you can use the same brush for acrylic and for watercolor. It doesn't matter. I keep them separate because when I'm doing big groups, I don't want to have different brushes gunked up because sometimes they would get really gunked up with it. You just don't want a coarse brush. So a coarse brush like this, where you can actually see the bristles on camera here, that's what you don't want. And because literally that's great for acrylic, fabulous for acrylic. This is just a dollar store brush. But what happens is all the water falls out. Like the second you turn it upside down, the water kind of comes gushing out. But you want soft bristles. That's it. To hold in the water. Okay, so very, very simple. Now, let's get started. And then we want gouache. Gouache will come later. And we're going to work with this palette. So I always keep back a separate little bowl of water for the white. Once I get into the white, I want to keep that separate. Just in case when I'm doing winter, I'm going to bring it back down here. And I am going to I'm going to start. This is to stop any water from going near the computer too much. And I'm going to start just flicking water in there. I want this, like the background is going to be very, very, very watery. You can see from the water, it's going quite yellow instead of orange. So the water's allowing the light to go through it. That's the basic physics of light and color. So you see I'm getting quite a puddle on there. You could spray it, but I like to sort of drip it. Then I have more control over where that big drop goes. So I'm just doing this, okay? And they're already playing. They're already making beautiful colors. Now I've got some, sometimes I call these bits the egg yolk and the egg white. For this one, I'm not going to do that just because I don't want dark colors on this. I want really subdued colors. So I'm going to be using a lot of this sort of color. So I'm going to drag, just manipulate this a bit, dragging the yellow, and see, it's just creating different tones. Now I didn't over mix it. I just kind of dragged some of that water over there. That's not much pigment because it's very watery, okay? Then I'm going to drag some of that brown through the green. I'm not mixing it. I'm just kind of like, oh, this actually looks like a painting in and of itself. Looks like, and then I'm going to take a little bit of the blue and the brown. I'm going to bring that over here. Ended up with green on it. I'll deal with that later. So I just wanted blue and brown for now. So I can do that with the clean brush. I just don't want to mess up this brush too much, actually, because I just want to get a little bit of the brown and a little bit of that blue kind of straight up. And that's going to give me kind of a Payne's gray or a sepia color. Okay, so that is going to be, you can actually see it's starting to go like that. More brown is giving you these soft colors, which is kind of, I mean, they look dark. And we can taste test. Keep a little paper aside to taste test. I call it taste testing. I know, it's weird. Okay, so we've got a very messy palette here, which is lovely. And I'm going to wash off the excess green off that. It's too much for me. So I am going to wash it off completely, pretty much in my thing here. And I'm going to wash both off. So I've got these deep dark colors. Then I've got my mustard. Already kind of the yellow kind of pushed away that mustard, that brown color anyway. So there we go. And you can see, so I have another scrap piece of paper here to taste, like I say, taste test colors. And I'm going to go up, bring it back up. First of all, we're going to wet our painting. We're going to do wet on wet for half of the painting. Halfway up, this is our, I've got a little bit of pigment in here because I washed my brush. That's hardly any pigment. See, it's nothing. So go ahead, use that water, get lots of water. I'm going back and forth, and you're coming at least halfway down. Doesn't have to be soaked. Okay, it does not have to be soaked. Now, because my brush is wet and my background's wet, these dark colors that I have here are not going to look as dark, okay? So I'm going to dip into this dark sort of brown blue color over here where I took away the blue. And I'm just going to dab in some of that color. And I might even go for a little more of the blue. I have some of the blue kind of off to the side. And see how it's kind of got a grayish tone to it? Okay, and don't worry about it. Oh my gosh, don't worry about things. So I'm going for a little bit more of the blue. I kept a little, there was that little one dot of blue, just kind of straight up blue. And then I'm going to get some more water and start really kind of blending this sky. So that's very little, where it kind of stopped to dry a little. Maybe it wasn't wet. I just don't want to drip too much, although I can drip. And I'm going really messy, super messy, in through the sky. See where, like, you could just rub those a little where it might have dried a little. If you had too much pigment, just rub them. Nothing major. And you can tilt your paper a little bit and see how the water plays. It's really awesome. But you do want a pale, pale, pale sky at this point, because I don't mind a little bit of these dark bits here. A little bit is fine. I'm not looking for perfect same pale across the board, because I want the background trees to kind of fade into the sky. Okay, so I can bring my water down a bit more, bring that water line down a bit more. And if you're tilting your paper just a little bit, you can tilt back and forth a little. It's going to do like a few different things, like, and just kind of melt into the sky a little differently. And I might bring a little bit of deeper color over here, just right in the corner. I just feel it needs it. And maybe over here. So I'm just barely dipping into the edge of my paint here, and it's fairly watery, just to kind of bring in some sky. And if it's flat, it's going to look different as well. But you do want it really, really light. The biggest mistake people make a lot of times, especially in a wintry scene, is going too dark in the sky. If it's too dark, what you're going to do, and I'm going to show you, very simple, is I don't want to do this because I like my sky, so I'm ruining it just for you. You're going to turn it to the side like this. Get some paper towel there. You're going to take water and drip it through. Water, 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 water. And sometimes I have literally taken a little cup and poured the water on because people don't put enough water on when they're trying to get rid of that pigment. Okay, now I just need to add a bit more of that pigment in here because it was dripping this way. Okay, I wanted a bit more pigment because my sky was nice. Now I'm sad to have it go away. Now you want to guide some of those drips so that they don't create lines. So it's kind of like wicking. It'll go where it's wetter. And that's why you need water. Every time my brush disappears, I'm getting water. Water, water, water. Now you're going to get a lot of warpage. That's fine. Let the paper play. That's what it's supposed to do. It's watercolor paper. Okay. Now I'm going to go back this way. Now I've got some drips coming down. What I'm going to do is take my paper towel in hand and catch the drip, take it off, catch the drip, take it off, catch the drip, catch the drip, catch the drip. Because I am defying gravity. Your drips are probably fine because you're painting flat, and I usually paint flat when I'm doing watercolors, except when I'm live streaming. Okay, or in person, I'm usually carrying it around and it's going every which way but loose. Okay, now this is wobbling on me. There we go. Now what we want to do is create some background. Okay, so we want to create some background, and so much like the sky, wintry, there's probably snow in these trees. It's very loose in the background, very soft. Okay, very soft in the background. Let's and we want to leave a little bit of a clearing here, just a little bit to the left of the barn. So the barn is pretty much going to go center. Pretty much. We want maybe slightly off center because I don't like anything even. So we're going to leave a little clearing in here, a little bit. Okay, it doesn't mean I want to see a perfect line in between the trees. As soon as I say something like that, everybody's like, got these little pillars going and stopping that. Don't do that. Okay, now I'm going to go for yellow ochre. Okay, then I'm going to do like maybe shorter here and maybe a bit higher over here. Maybe there's a little hill or something like that. Okay, and then quite high over here. Maybe these are more in the foreground, but they're still kind of faded because maybe there was a snowstorm yesterday, or there is today. I don't know. So I'm going to go into this yellow that was near the brown. The yellow that was near the brown, and it's still going to be pale because it's really wet. You see, I'm just kind of, with this filbert, I'm just kind of tapping in. Maybe these are old, like, I don't even know if they're trees. Maybe there's some kind of like old shrubs, and sometimes you have, just when the first snow hits, you get those, the yellow ochre trees. Which are they called? Oh my gosh, I did a whole painting on them. They're beautiful golden larch, the larch. Okay, so sometimes you see those things in there. Okay, and you might not see them looking like a tree. It's just kind of like a yellow glob going upward. Okay, just a little, maybe it's fading in on the left into something else. Okay, then over here, we're going to see a little bit more, and we're going into that, you know, maybe it's shorter here because remember we said we'd have a little bit of a clearing, a hint of a clearing, and maybe I'm going to pull up on that. Who knows what that is? Okay, maybe it's like, it looks like a spider. It's like a, I don't know. Who knows what that is? We don't want to know. And Then I have a little brownish going in there. Maybe I'm not going to see all this yellow, okay? It's not going to look as yellow. Then I'm going to have some other little dots of this brownish yellow. Okay, got some green in there. Oops, that's quite brownish. Just going to grab, I want to get that pigment there. I'm going to just hold it on the side. That was a lot of yellow, but I'm going to water that down a bit. Okay, so I'm going to take that and I'm going to bring this over here. And notice I'm not trying to get yellow, 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 yellow in a dot. I just have a yellow, yellow, and then I have a patch which has an uneven bit of yellow in them. And I'm going to go up here. I'm going to let that kind of play. It's also melting into the painting. Trust the process. Let it look messy. Okay, trust the process. Now I'm going to go into these green browns. Okay, to the green brown, remember, I had it kind of over to the side. Going to do similar things back here. Maybe I'm going to do a slightly different brush stroke. I'm going to bring the green. Oh, that's a lot. Whoa. I'm going to wipe that off. It's too much. It's too much. I'm going to wipe that off. And I'm going to take a little water. Okay, so don't think you've got to, because I want this faded, don't think you, and now it is fading a little bit into that water area. So I'm going to go up with my brush straight up, straight on, thin way. Maybe this is going to be kind of like some evergreen trees. And I just touched the water. I touched the meniscus of the water to get it watery. Okay, so some people touch the water and then shake it off, and I've seen this happen too. They wipe it here, and then you don't get the water. I want water. I don't want a wiped off brush. I'll let you know when I want a wiped off brush. Okay, so, and we're going to go upward. This is still messy. It does not look like a tree. Okay, this is very messy. It's way in the background. Okay, then I'm going into that. I don't know where I got that color. That was really dark, but I like it. Now I can't find it again. And see, very messy. Trust that process. Okay, still very messy. Don't worry about down here. Resist the urge to go straight across. Okay, resist the force. You can come down lower. Okay, see how it's looking really, oh, look, I'll mess it up more. Whoa. Blah. Give everybody a heart attack. Okay, and I'm dipping into somewhere in that green, blue, brown, and I'm going to go upward again. And here we go, up. I'm not doing any recognizable tree. These are just a different, slightly different shape. I'm going up higher here. Okay, I'm leaving the bottom, just leaving that. Okay, let it be messy. Let the whole paper play. And I'm going to do maybe some, with what's left on the brush, I'm going to wiggle my brush up and down here. Just maybe like from in behind the burn. I want to get a little bit more blue on my brush. I'm not washing it. I'm just getting a bit more blue. That was a lot of blue. I'm going to go into the brown a little. Okay. I'm just going to go into that brown a little to soften that blue. And then I'm going to take the tiniest bit of water. I want to get that kind of blending more into the sky. Maybe there's a hill back there and it has some trees back there. So what I'm doing now is I'm wiping off excess pigment because that's too much pigment for me. Then I'm breaking the meniscus of the water. The brush is going to pull the water and I'm going to mess that up. Almost let it fade into the sky. I'm picking up more pigment, so I'm going to take that off, break the meniscus of the water because the paper towel absorbed some water as well. And I'm going to push that sky, push it into the sky a little, not trying to make it look perfectly like a sky, but just kind of pushing it. I'm going to catch that drip. Okay. And notice I didn't go over all of the ochre or anything like that. Now I think I've got most of this kind of tree line done. I might want a little bit browner blue in here, just a little bit. And again, too much pigment, take it off. We're still letting this background go soft. And that's it. It's just giving me a different sort of feel in there, just a different feel of color. Okay, this is looking too, there's like a rectangle in here, so I'm just going to mess up the edge. That's all I'm doing, messing up the edge. Now over here, this one might be a faded kind of blue spruce kind of thing, faded because it's probably snow covered. So I'm going to go into the blue and the greenish color, and a little bit of that brown is fine too. Okay, and sometimes the spruce, these go upward. Okay, so the tilt of my brush is, I'm going to show you with a big brush. Okay, they don't go down like a Christmas, like kids draw a Christmas tree. So let's see, the brush is going to go like tilted, but it's tilting upward. Okay, so it's coming out the side. It's tilting upward. So they want the light too. The big trees want the light too. So I'm going to just coming off the side. See, I'm tilting upward. And I'm going really messy. My brush is going back and forth. My brush isn't going to stop moving. I'm going to show you from the side. It's the thin way. I'm going to go over here to that yellow ochre. And my brush is going to continuously move. It's going to get more dense as I get close to that edge. And I'm coming right downward, into, like I'm coming a little bit more into that foreground. And it's really highly pigmented here. I don't want that. So I'm taking, like, the pigment disappeared as my brush went down. So I am going to go back up here and kind of fade that out with water. Taking pigment off, using a bit of water. Always only a little dip of water. Okay. Oops. Every time I do that wiggle thing, and almost letting it fade into the sky. Very faded. And then kind of letting it fade into the lawn of the barn, or the barnyard. And we're going to have stuff in front, and I want to get a little bit of pigment off here, so I'm using water, pulling it off. Water, pull off, water. I just pull off with the water. I'll show you again that little trick. So I wet my brush, wet it, dry my brush on the paper towel, and then pull it off again, and it goes nice and pale again. So that's what I want there. Okay. So we've got a basic background. And I do want a little bit of the brownish sepia color that we did, the brown sort of brown blue color that we made, brownish bluish. Depending on your blue, it's going to go a little bit of green, maybe. It'll feel olivey, that's exactly what we want. And I'm going to bring that little olivey color, that deep color in here, lower down into that tree. And kind of let that fall off. See how it just gives some depth in there? You could even use a tiny bit of more of the straight up brown as well down here. And then I'm going to take water, a little bit of water, breaking the meniscus, and gonna sort of like let that blend. And I can even start to go into the snow a little bit with what's on my brush, because I'm really liking that color as a shadow color. I can do a little bit of shadows into the snow over here. See, just with what's on my brush, and these are just shadows in the snow. Okay, maybe little like wind prints. They're kind of going one way, and it's only because I had that on my brush, so why would I clean it and I want to use that? Okay, see how it's just little shadows in the snow, just like that. We'll do more shadows. These are these background shadows, okay? And it'll all come out in the wash when we kind of leave our painting. When we start to, and the gouache will also, like we'll cover some of that white with the gouache, and it'll kind of blend these things in more. Okay, so we're just, maybe I want to bring that under that yellow ochre color. Now we want to get with our, see, this is really messy, and I'm liking that. Just leave it alone. Leave it alone. Everybody always wants to, and we do want it to go down more on the side a little because it creates a different viewpoint. Everybody always wants to go straight or, think they're finishing it off. The painting's not finished. Spoiler alert. So you're not finishing it off right now, okay? Okay. Now we're going to do kind of like these, what I call these little ghost trees in the background. Okay, that's achieved with the toilet paper. So remember, I said tune in for TP, tune in for TP, PT, TP. Okay, so this is too much. So I want, now the best toilet paper is the non-textured kind, like the really, really cheap kind that you don't want to use in the bathroom. But this is fine too. It'll work because sometimes it might leave the texture behind. Now you're just going to watch me. Just watch me. Okay, I'm going to do an example. I call them ghost trees because we kind of put the pigment on and we take the pigment off again. Okay, now they're way off in the, oh shoot, my toilet, my TP just dipped in. See how the TP does absorb? That's why we use TP, because it absorbs really fast. Sometimes you end up pressing your, I had that already and it just got into my palette. Darn things. Okay. Why is my, okay, just a second. I'm just going to wiggle you guys for a minute. There we go. I usually put my computer on like a plinth, like little thing, so that if water spills, it's not going to go, hopefully, it's going to go under and not on top of my computer. And so I'm going to use this little brush. Going to go into the brownish, greenish, bluish, whatever color here we got. And I don't know where that blue went. I lost my blue, but it's going to be fine. So I'm going to do a nice big one. Okay, nice big one here. What you want to do is basically have your brush nice and straight. Okay, like 90 degrees for now. You're going to do a nice trunk. Just the idea of a trunk. Just the idea of a trunk. Simple. Okay, because you don't see the trunk necessarily. And then I'm picking up a little bit more pigment and I'm just going to sort of be sloppy across here. The spruce is, so they go out and down and then sometimes upward at the top of the tree. Okay, we don't always see the trunk. The trunk is only a guideline. Okay, and so as it gets snow laden, they can go down. And as they get heavy, now we don't see the trunk of the tree. There's more concentration of this low down. Okay. So we don't see the trunk necessarily. Now I saw the trunk just because it's darker. It's darker than that. Then what we're going to do is put the toilet paper on top. Just kind of touch it on top. It's going to take away the pigment because I want it to look faded. So it's going to take away a lot of the pigment. See how it looks much more faded? So I just tap it and then bring it off. So I call those ghost trees. Simple. And you have that. And you can... Now, we're going to do some of those in the background. Then we're going to do ones that are a little bit more in the foreground. And we're going to do them together, okay? So a little, like some of these that are a little bit more in the foreground, they're going to be different because I want to leave space for snow, okay? I want to leave space for snow. Okay, so ghost trees are going to be small, not that big. I only showed you big. Then some people, they start without me, and then they go really big. It's like, no, because they're way off in the background. So ghost tree here, very small, and you don't even really need a guideline. You just need like, and have your toilet paper handy. Have your little toilet paper piece handy. Resist the urge to crumple up your toilet paper and start dabbing. You're going to take too much pigment off. We only want, like, we still want some pigment if you were to do that. So this was kind of drippy. So I'm going to go small, and I just needed a guideline. I didn't need a straight line. I skipped a bit there. So I'm just going to kind of tap. I'm tapping the paint. It's fairly watery, okay? And I just kind of did that. I went back and forth. I don't see the trunk. It's not a cross section, okay? Then I can even use that dirty toilet paper because I don't care if it more blend goes in the background a little bit. Tap it off. Ghost tree right there. Nice. That might be a bit too much ghosty, but that's fine. I'm going to do another one beside it. So I'm going to go into a little bit more blue. I'm going to go up. That one's going to be a bit higher ghost tree. And you can always go back with some pigment into that if you take too much off. And leave the bottom. We're not doing anything with the bottom. And then I'm going to just tap a little bit. I just tapped too much before. Oops. I want that more ghosty upstairs, up there. And I'm going to add a bit more pigment into this one, the bigger one. Maybe it's going to be looking like it's over top of the other one. But just leave that alone. I'm going to do another couple of higher ghost trees here. Right in front of all of that. Right in front of it all. Okay? Whoops. That one's going a little bit wonky. Maybe these are really high ones back there. And leave that bottom. Just leave it alone. And I might go a bit higher up here. Then just going to tap my TP. Oops. I shouldn't have rubbed it. I rubbed it and too much came off. So don't rub it, just tap. I said to tap and then I rubbed it. I don't know why I did that. So I can go back, put in a little bit of pigment, but I don't want to put much back in. Okay? Again, this is just the idea of a tree. We could have some kind of back here. Maybe the idea with what's left on our brush. We don't really have to take any off just because I don't have much paint on there. Okay. Now we're going to do a few small ones. Like I've got a couple of small ones here. We're going to do the deciduous, we're going to do the coniferous, then we're going to do the barn, then we're going to do the deciduous. Okay, so these nice conifers here, and maybe it's a baby, so it came close to the barn. Or no, it's not too much of a baby because it's almost the same size as the barn. and then 2 over here. And we can add some more in if we want them, but I want to save room for snow. So what you're going to do is actually kind of work with negative space. You're going to leave some space because you don't want to have to fill in, especially if you, even the gouache can be a little bit translucent at times. Okay, so I'm going to go in. This is going to be my main trunk. This is just a guideline. So don't go heavy with it, okay? Don't go heavy with it. I keep saying that over and over again. And then people start going up and down this trunk to try and get it straight. This is just a guideline. We don't see the trunk. There's so much foliage coming forward in this, we don't see the trunk, okay? So up here, there's a lot of snow. So I'm going to leave kind of some space for snow. Okay, then I'm going to sort of leave a little space for snow. There's a lot of space in front. The snow comes right in front. The snow doesn't tip on either side like a kid decorates a Christmas tree. Okay, or like a kid draws a Christmas tree and then decorates just the edge. It's not a cross section because there's a lot of snow coming in front. Okay, so, and what we don't want to see is this. I don't want to see this. I see this a lot. It's like, no, we have still some foliage coming in front. And then we might have a little foliage coming here. And you see how it skips a bit? Already it looks like there's snow in there. So skip a bit, and then there's foliage coming out this way. And maybe some in the center. Lots of snow happens in the center because that's where it looks like it's coming at us. Okay? So don't leave too much space. Like don't start doing this dot. I see people doing this dotting thing like that and leaving space. No, 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 no. Okay? Right up against, they can touch each other because otherwise you're going to have to fill this in with gouache, right? Or white watercolor, okay? Leave the base, just leave the base, okay? See how I've really scattered, but I've still kept it fairly close together, okay? And so let's practice on a little one, these 2 little ones here. So let's go for maybe more bluey spruce. Using the paint a little more concentrated now. So less water, less on our brush, less water on our brush. We're going concentrated. And I'm going to do, maybe these guys are kind of in the foreground here. So this is where I'm going to go. I'm going to give myself this little guideline. Okay, one is a little bit offset from the other. And these are little kind of blue sprucey. Little blue, like blue spruce isn't necessarily blue. And they're just really tiny. So I don't have a lot of green on them. Already, because I left some space, you don't want to see stripes. This is not about stripes. See, so I'm going to do, everybody look at this for 2 seconds. Even if you're doing your tree, look at this. That's not stripes of snow, it's clumps of snow. Okay? So we're not doing stripes. I see that a lot too. I see people putting stripes like straight across white, like, and you can see here, everybody look here, like as the snow kind of falls, it's kind of like the snow is kind of weighing down the branch. So it's kind of got a slant this way, hence why kids draw Christmas trees with a slant that way. But up here, it's a big clump. And then as it weighs down the branch, it sort of starts to slant this way. Here, it's like a clump, like a lump. And so again, leaving this and leave the bottom because the bottom's going to have more snow there. Okay. So I'm dipping again. I want this fairly deep, and really I have almost too much of a guideline here. I really don't want that much of a guideline. I'm not looking for that. So here we go. That's it. I'm just leaving that. Then we're going to have a deciduous tree in the foreground. Really nice. And we are going to put a little bit of whatever. I might have like maybe kind of one kind of coming up here that was kind of maybe coming from behind the barn. And I'm just going to kind of leave it part way because I can just fill in with white. So I'm just kind of leaving that there. I'm going to deal with that later. I just felt that I wanted something there. Okay. Now we're going to do maybe another little tiny one like this here. Nice blue, brown, green, a little bit bolder in color, like in intensity of pigment. So your brush is fairly dry. Only your paint is kind of wet now. Okay, and very little. It's very messy. We're leaving space for snow. Okay, now this big one here, I'm gonna have right here. I want one here that's stopping here. We're gonna have a fence kind of behind this tree, an idea of a fence. Okay, so I want this tree to go up here. Okay, because it's in the foreground, it goes higher. Okay, this tree, maybe it's a little bit back further and it goes up. It can go higher or it can go lower than this one. It doesn't matter too much. It's nicer if it goes a bit lower because we've got this kind of lowing down, and if it's the same size, if they were roughly planted around the same time, they would kind of narrow this way. Okay. So again, leaving space. If you're not sure, look back at me. Holding your brush further back. It's not a pencil. If you do this, you're going to press too hard. You're not going to get that loose, soft feel. So I will show you here. Okay, you're going to press hard and you're going to don't lean your elbow. Okay, you're going to press hard and you're going to do this. And you're going to get like these globs. Okay, what you want to do is lift your elbow up, reverse your hand, move your hand back, loose, let the brush wiggle a bit. Okay, you get that main guideline and you're just kind of wiggling the brush and you're seeing kind of clumps of that green. Okay, but they stay close together. It's not, again, not this, like a clump here and a clump there. And I've seen that happen and I don't know what's going on. And people know what's wrong and they go, I don't know why I did that. Okay, so we don't see the trunk. I've given you a trunk. You could have just done a dotted line. I've just given you a trunk because my gouache will cover it. Okay, and again, this blue, brown, greenish color, blue, brown, green. And I'm going to show you from the side. See my brush? You can't even see my hand that's holding the brush. It's so far back. Okay. And I'm going to lean this here. My brush is 90 degrees. It's going upward because tree branches want to go upward as well to the light, just like deciduous trees do. Okay. Then they start to get a little bit more laden, and then we go downward and sort of like little patches of these messy greeneries. So little patches of messy green. They're going right over that trunk, and also and then widen out a little bit. But you see, we've left a lot of space for snow. Okay, this one might be a bit too far out, but then they're also different. Every side is not a mirror image. Okay, it's not a mirror image. The big white pines, we have massive white pines here, and they will bend in the wind. So sometimes all their needles and their branches are on one side, away from the west wind. So they're literally will bend around the entire trunk of the tree. They'll bend around the tree and then have this cloud of needles here. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And here we're gonna do this. This one goes a bit higher. If you miss the height, then just add in more height. I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna show you from the side a bit. So my trunk is going to get covered with snow right off the side. I'm going right off the side, right into that other one, right into the other one. And so hopefully you do not have that heavy a trunk. Like I said, it's just a guideline. You could have done dots. I did one so you could see. I ruined mine. I sacrificed myself. Okay. And then sometimes as it gets close to here, they go shorter. And they look shorter here because they're underneath, okay? And then we're going to do some more stuff down here, okay, with whatever's going on. We're going to do some shadows in there, everything else. And we are going, once the white comes on there, it's going to finish off beautifully, okay? It's going to be gorgeous. The white will really pull it all together. Even if you've only got white watercolor, it's going to pull it all together. And the snow splatter finishes it off like crazy. So again, trust the process. Now what we're going to do is the barn. And Rhonda, so the little trees go in front of the big trees? I'm not sure what you're saying. So these are little trees. They're right in front. They're just little baby trees. So they go right in front. Everything goes in front of the next thing behind it, right? So that's the idea of a scene. Not everything, appears in a vacuum. Okay. So you want to have layers, layers and layers and layers. Okay. So now we're going to do the barn. And again, this looks messy. It doesn't look nice. Everything's going to come together. Mine doesn't look nice. Like, it looks messy. And everybody starts to get a little bit like, oh, they start to get frustrated at this stage. The paint, the paper's still kind of wet there. Everything's wet. We need that light, which is white, to bring it all together as a winter scene. Okay, so it will come together. Don't worry. Yeah, so they just came right in front here. And these ones came in front. Everything comes in front of the other tree. And we sort of have a little bit of a pathway because it's an old barnyard. Now, this is an old barnyard that's been kind of, half dead from the thing. So we're going to add some red to our palette. Okay. It doesn't matter what red you use. And if you have sienna, use that. People always wonder which red I'm using. I have a couple of different reds. And what do I have here? And I'm still going to use my brownish color. And I must have used up that one. So I must have used up my reds because I've been doing a lot of Christmassy stuff, so I didn't have it in my open pack. My open pack here. going to open a new pack. Yay, don't you love it when you get to open a new pack? This is a new pack. Ooh, an unboxing. And this is packaged for Desserts. So Desserts is Omar Desserts is Canadian, and he produces my acrylics that I use, and Desserts is, so see, it's packaged for Desserts, but it's still PBO paints. So that's the only way you can buy a pack of 24 is through Desserts. So it's exclusive. Ooh. You can buy a pack of 18 or 12 with the, I don't know if you, like probably other places in the world have the PBO with that. So I want, where's my red here? So this is, I can't read these little tiny things, primary red cadmium. There is no cadmium in that. Cadmium is toxic. However, if you do have watercolors that have a real cadmium red in it, that are really expensive, they can be toxic. So watercolors can be toxic because they're too water soluble. So don't eat them. I know, right? And I shouldn't have to tell you guys that. So this is, and also like a really, really expensive oil, but they're not as toxic because the oil holds the toxin in. So metals like cadmium are toxic. So you don't want to eat metals like copper. You don't want to eat, you don't want to have copper. So here's my red. Okay. So I'm actually going to kind of slide that red off the edge. I really don't need much. Okay, I'm going to slide that off the edge so that it'll kind of blend. I'm not going to overblend this though. I'm not going to overblend it. I just don't need a separate container for that. Now up we come. Yes, so I have a thing for Christmas cards this week on Friday and I'm sorry I didn't get to do the Christmas cards, but there's lots of YouTube artists that do Christmas cards. Yeah, just look up watercolor Christmas cards. There's lots of amazing ones. So I just never got to it. So I'm doing them in person this Friday. So that's why I'm using a lot of my red close to Christmas. And Rhonda says, and yours doesn't look messy exactly. Well, what exactly is messy and not messy, right? The messier the better is actually good. So I'm going to do the burn and I'm going to show you the burn first. Okay. So we want to keep, I probably might go a little bit bigger than this one. I like the burn to kind of look small in that background, but I might still stay small, but I'm going to go a little bit bigger so that you can see, and I'll bring the paper close. So see this up, and now I'm going to focus in. So everybody focus. The camera's going to focus and you're going to focus. See that up and down brush stroke. So burn board, all we need to do is that up and down brush stroke, and that's it. And we just get this beautiful, beautiful color, and we don't overdo it. And then we will use a little bit of dark brown blue for in here. Okay, we don't need black. If you want, you could use a little black, but black really kills watercolor fast. That blue black is really amazing. If you have a deep, like a cobalt blue or ultramarine blue, it's with the brown, it's going to go even darker. Okay, so most general sets that only have maybe 6 to 10 colors have, typically it's a phthalo blue that would be in that set, which runs into a little greenish color, but that's fine. It's totally fine. Okay. So I'm going to show you this example. So everybody's going to watch the example first. I'm just cutting. I have some scrap watercolor paper that I had. And I'm going to show you. So this is an old thing here. Just using painter's tape. Okay. We're going to use this little brush. Where'd that little brush go? I hit it. We're going to use this little brush, but I'm going to use a big brush to show you first, okay? So I'm going to turn that away. I don't want you to look at that. I want you to look here. Oh, you can still see it. Oh boy, out of the corner of your eye. So I'm going to use this bigger brush, but I'm going to use it the thin way to show you, okay? I just want to make sure because I want to go bigger, and I just want to, and I am going to use like a little bit of brown in with my red. So it doesn't mean I'm mixing it. I'm just touching, alternating, okay? Just alternating. So I'm going to make sure there's no green on that brush, but green will shadow red anyway. So I'm going to get a little bit of that red on there and a little bit of the brown. And I am going to dot out my peak. Oops, sorry. So I'm going to use a thin way, but first I'm going to dot out the peak. Okay, dotting out my peak. Did I do a line? No, I did not. I'm going to use more brown just so it goes darker on the camera for you. And dotting out my peak. Just dotting. That's it, that's all. Then resist the urge to do anything else. We're not going here. The barn boards go straight down. They don't sort of do this A-line roof. Then we have the milk house. So this is an abandoned barn. They're in the summer house, or they went to Florida, the cows. So the milk house always goes off to the side. So we have the milk house and the entrance, and then this is the big tractor entrance and where the cows go in and out. And then we have the sides come down like this. We don't really need to have the peak of the roof because that's going to be snow. There's going to be snow on there. So I don't want you to go straight down in any way, shape, or form because the snow is going to mess that up. We want the snow to look natural. Now, because I want snow at the bottom, I want the bottom of the barn to be messy. I don't want it going straight across. You're going to use up way too much of your white. This is also conserving white. Okay, so here we have a drift in front of the milk house. Okay, so we have a drift in front of the milk house, so that's where I want to go. I'm going to go get a bit more deep paint on to show you. Okay, so drift in front, then the way it's drifting down a bit, then back up again, big drift, and then over here. The more you can leave space for snow, the better for your winter watercolor. Okay? Because we want to it's like doing a negative painting. Now from the side, so I promise I'm going to do just like I'm going to do with the small brush, but this I'm going to use the point. So filberts are great because they're kind of rounded, so they will go to a point if you're doing, but it's just this is big, so I can really show you big. So we're going to take the red, pretty much straight, like a lot of red pigment on there. You can actually see there's a lot of red pigment on there. I think you can see it, hopefully, depending on the light. And starting from the top, okay? Ignore this. Ignore down here. Starting from the top, we're going to do lines. So your brush is straight on, further back your hand, push your hand further back, elbows off the table, so that you're not going to, and you don't want to do curves. So you're going straight down, okay? Let that paint kind of fall off. See, it kind of fell off there. And then straight down again. I'm going to dip again. My paint is creamy. And remember, I'm using a bit more brown, okay? A bit more brown here, but you're watching anyway. Right from the top. If some of those brush strokes touch, that's okay. Leave it alone. We're not filling in. We are not filling in. And see, I'm just starting from the top. My brush touches the top and comes down. I just flick down. If I go too far over here, I'm not going to worry too much, but I don't want to do that. I am getting carried away. And then a little bit here. I need a bit more pigment because I'm losing my pigment. And remember, I'm using brown, brownish red, just to show you. So you see, now I'm going to go the other way, and I'm going to go down. So you don't have to touch your guideline. You don't have to touch that guideline. I'm picking up more of that brownish. Okay. We're going to do red. And see, if I've got some gaps, that's fine. Leave it alone. Now, we're going to take, without cleaning this brush, we want to keep that paint on there. This is important. Keep that paint on there. We are going to touch the water, okay? Touch the top, the surface of the water. I don't care that that's a messy color. It's hardly any pigment. Touch the surface of the water. Don't pull off the water. I want that little bit of water. I'm only breaking the surface of the water. I'm only breaking the surface tension, which is the meniscus of the water. Okay? So it's pulling enough water that I need and not excess water. If you had excess water, then that would not be good. So if you have to, hold the water so you can see that your brush is just touching the surface and creating that little ripple. Then this brush, you're going to pull down with the water. I'm doing it the fat way, but I will still use exactly this brush, exactly that brush. I'm just doing it the fat way to save time. I'm going to take I've got a little bit of water on there still. I'm going to break the surface of the water again, and I'm pulling straight down, and taking a little bit of water, pulling straight down. I am not going over every spot. Okay. And then a little bit more water because I can tell I'm losing the water. Okay. Because it's not filling in, losing the water. And so here we go. I shouldn't lose too much water because these are short brush strokes. So I can just continue. And you see, so simple. And it looks like barn board, especially from a distance. Here, it's got faded barn boards, which happens because this is an old abandoned barn. Okay, faded. And if you want, you could do a little bit more color in a certain spot. Or if you have if you have heavy guidelines that you want to get rid of, like let's say your guideline was heavy and you could just pull up on that guideline a little bit. Just pull up on it so that, so it's not like a big dot. But your guideline should be so pale right now. It should be so pale you don't have to do that. But when I say pull up, it just means kind of a small up and feathering, kind of like flicking your brush upward. Okay? There's all different tones and color and everything in there. And this is really exaggerated, which you're not going to have. Correct? Yes, Paint with Janet. And so you don't need this big brush. Hopefully not. Okay. And I am going to wash that off because I need it for the snow. So I want to wash red off the snow. I don't want to get red in my snow. Yeah, there's no red on it. It washes off easily. Okay. I'm going to keep this here. I'm going to keep this because I'm going to come back to it when we go to put the snow on. Okay. Whoops, sorry. I can bring this in front a little bit. Oh, what happened? Oh, something. I'll bring that in front a little bit. So I've got my reddish color, and I'm going to make sure my brush is fairly damp, just because my reddish color was not very wet, but my brownish color is, so it's fine. So I am going to fairly wet, but then I'm just going to tap it a little bit to get rid of excess water because I don't want excess water right now. And I'm going to have the peak of my burn right here. The peak of the burn goes above the horizon. So I've got quite a pigment load with that red. Okay. So this is center. The peak of the burn is slightly off center. Just looks nice there. Okay. Peak of the burn is off center. That's where the peak of my burn is. I did say I was going to bring it closer, didn't I? It's easier to move this closer than it is to move my my computer closer. The computer camera. The camera. So here we go. There's the dot. There's the peak. Okay. And so my nice peak, I am going to dot out my peak right in front of everything that's behind it. Okay. And then I'm going to do the milk house slightly slanted to the right. Everything's always slightly slanted, especially in Canada where we get heavy snow buildup, because otherwise it's like in Switzerland, you get those heavy peaked houses. In northern Quebec, you see a lot of like that Swiss style house just because there's a lot of snow up there. And the snow falls off the roof instead of caving in your roof. Okay. Then we can come down on the side a little bit. This is very small because the milk house is fairly small and comparatively, because think of this barn as housing like a hayloft and tractor and everything else, but it's set off in the distance. Okay, then I'm going to get room for a snowdrift. Very small. You shouldn't have to notice this. And another snowdrift, and maybe there's a big snowdrift there. Okay. Simple, simple, simple. And again, we like some of that is faded, like maybe the paint faded and peeled on the barn, because this is kind of abandoned because the cows went south. They don't necessarily go south. They actually grow quite a heavy coat of fur on them. The Highland cows do too. So I'm going to start from the peak, and with my brush fairly loaded, see, there's a little dot on the end, and that's actually quite a lot of creamy red. Okay, so downward, you can put a little pressure on your brush. Downward. Now, resist the urge to do this stripe like this. Okay, have it more natural. Some of them might be striped together. Some of them might be striped apart. The barn board could be a little crooked. Okay, so I'm getting more pigment. Remember to load your pigment. You want a good pigment load. And the roof resist the urge to go straight across that roof, because again, it's that snow-laden roof, which is giving you lots of perspective. Now, over here, I kind of lost. Maybe here, I want to bring some reddish up that way, just a bit more. And I just want a heavier, I still had some brown on my brush. So I want to get a bit more heavy red in there. And now saying brown, I can take a little bit of brown and put like any of your brown or dark blue brown, just do a little shadow. So you see there, like just under where that the snow creates a lot of shadow, just kind of here. Just create a little bit of like a few flecks coming down of shadow. See? And just in the main part of the peak and maybe just on one side. Not everywhere. Not everywhere. Now, because I put that dark bit on my brush, I'm going to wash that brush off a little bit. And remember I said I didn't want the pigment off, but I had too much dark on there. So I'm going to reload. I'm just putting a little extra red on there. Then I'm going to start going with my water. So water, because I don't have, I'll show you on a piece of paper towel. My pigment's not gone. See, it's not gone. It's just getting more watery. Okay, now I'm breaking the surface, the meniscus of the water, pulling down right to my guideline. Only one time. One pull kind of between all of your things. Okay? And if you see a tiny bit of white there, that's fine. It can be a crack in the boards. And just one pull. I'll show you. If you overdo it, you can overdo watercolor really easily. So you see, even on here, it's kind of getting dry. If I were to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and fuss and fuss and fuss and go, that's not right. That's not right. Look at how dull that is compared to just beside it. And I only went back and forth for like, what, 10 seconds? So then we're going to do the blue-black door. Okay, blue-black door-ish. Okay, now this, it goes wide and it goes right into the drift, because the drift is in front of the door. So it's, or blue-brown, if you want to use a little black, you can. Blue-brown. And I'll show you the door here. So the door pretty much goes right under the peak. And like, think of this as the milk house, like that would be a person would be able to go through here. So you want a bit higher door. So this one would be, the door would be a bit shorter. And here it would be a bit higher. So there's my guideline. I need more paint and my water is drying out on my brush. So you need a bit of paint to pick up, to get it to go dark. And I'm going to bring that right down to my drift. And then you also have like a little window where they can sometimes put a little machine up there to get the hay bales up through the window. And the door, the door can be crooked. It doesn't matter. Okay, I need to get more pigment on here. Pretty high pigment load here. Tiny motions with this brush. And no, not too much water on your brush either. Very creamy. And here, right down to that drift. And then that little window. I'm going to extend over here because I didn't quite get center. Now, we're going to let that paint settle, because the minute we touch it with white, we're going to get pink. Okay, so we want that to settle a bit. And since I have this dark on my brush, I want it, like, it's looking a little bit too light over here. So I just want to, under where the roof would be, and maybe I want to put a little bit of that in, and I'm going to blend it a bit with my finger. You don't have to. Okay, you don't have to. You could even pull down a little bit more on those other shadows with a dry brush, fairly dry brush. It just gives more depth to it. So all I was doing there was I was keeping my brush away from, like, my hand away, and I was just kind of pulling down gently with what was on my brush. That was it. Not a lot. And I didn't go back over with water. And this is all going to come out in the wash. It looks so awkward right now, right? Because the roof looks awkward, but there's a lot of snow on there. Believe me, there's a lot of snow. I've seen lots of snow in my time here in Canada. And now we're going to like I said, we're going to let that settle down. We're just going to give it a little bit of time to kind of dry-ish, because the white gouache will actually reactivate it and rejuvenate it. Okay, so we kind of don't want that at this point. Okay, so I'm going to start to work over here with some deciduous type trees, weeds, those kinds of things. So I'm using my brown. I can even touch a little bit of red in my brown. Sometimes that looks nice. Sometimes you get a little bit, but not a lot. Now, you know, you don't have to, but you can if you want. It just looks a little different. But I'm going to stay into the blue-brown side of things, the bluish-brownish side of my palette. So you see my palette's getting, I'm going to bring it down to show you. This palette's getting super messy. This is the blue-brown end of things. And because I put some blue in here and it got swept up in there, and I can reuse this paint. I reuse it all the time. I just start, whenever I'm doing one from scratch, like without filming it, I'll just go into these and I'll grab all these paints and rejuvenate them. And see, I've got all kinds. I don't throw anything out. It's crazy. Crazy. Especially if it's like a big gob of yellow. I don't want to waste a lot of yellow because you use a lot of yellow. Yellow is like calms down other colors. As you notice, there's not a lot of yellow in here, but it looks like, but like not just yellow, not just flat out yellow. Okay. So I'm going to do this fence here. There's just a hint of a fence. Again, just the idea of a fence. The idea of a fence kind of coming out from behind that tree, maybe going in front of this tree, maybe. And it's small, like it's small. It might be a bit, the size of it, kind of like perspective wise, the post would be about the size of what you see in the milk house here, just because it's close up. Okay, so it's a bit closer up. So perspective wise, that's your sizing. So I'm going to have, so creamy brush, like my palette is creamy. Okay, everything's very creamy, blue-brown color. Okay, blue-brown. And I'm doing this. I'm going to do the post here. Okay, so I'm going to do the post first. Okay, now, and then the next post is going to go right in front of this tree. It's going to be a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to do one more post that's a little bit smaller. Okay. I just pulled down a little bit The bottom of the post, I'm not going over because there's snow there. So on a farm fence, usually there's 3 rungs, but because there's so much snow, we're only seeing 2. We're going to see 2 rungs. And this is just it's kind of an abandoned fence. So maybe one of the posts kind of fell like as it went this way. And so then I'm going to have like the adjoining fence, they're going to be smaller. Okay, so the posts are wider, and then the bar goes, oops, I had a bit of red on there. That's okay. The bar goes like that. And don't overdo this. So this one might have fallen. Okay, then we're going to have snow on there. That was really warped, which a lot of fence posts are warped. I'm just going to make that look a little bigger. But again, we're going to have snow on that. Everything looks kind of broken there. Then for in the background, we might have like sort of soft trees that look like back here. Okay, so these are deciduous ones that don't have the leaves on. So just to kind of get a practice, you're going to use the brownish, keep whatever color's on there. And if you want, you can use a smaller brush. Okay, I like to show you with a big brush. And you're just going to make sure your brush isn't too dry at this point, but not too wet. If it's not flowing, like here, if it's flowing, that's fine. If it's not flowing, then touch a little bit of water to it, okay? Touch a little bit of water to it. And you could even use a little bit of that ochre color on your brush, just to sort of give it an olivey feel too as well. So that would make it look like that. And I'll show you. See, it's just kind of, it's got those grayish olive undertones, which a lot of bark does have. Okay. So you see, it's like, that's the color. So just don't be afraid to dip in all of your colors that you have, kind of that are soft, brownish, yellowish colors. And the main part of your brush is going upward. So your handle is facing upward. So to do like a deciduous tree, your handle's going to point the way you're going. So again, lift your hand off, like your elbow off the table, Mabel. And I'm going to get more pigment so that you can see better. So I'm going up. My handle is slightly tilted upward. Okay. And my handle's going to change direction as my branch goes off. So I have some brownish color on there. And see, like now these trees go into like a Y. They are not like this. Do not do that. And don't kind of go off like that. So when you're branching out, follow the trunk and then branch into the Y. Follow the trunk so you can make your trunk a bit wider and then branch into the Y. Okay. And as you go, see, as I lose my pigment, as I lose my paint, I just break the surface as it's not painting. Sorry, if it's not flowing, break the surface of the water with that point a lot, and then it will flow better. Okay. And we don't want to have these too dark. So you see, that's why I still have it kind of watery. I'm not applying the heavy pigment load because they're actually kind of pale. They're pale in color. Okay. They're not a heavy, I need to just wash that off my brush because it's a heavy pigment load there. Okay, so I'm going to operate in here. I'm going to bring, I just got a tickle in my throat for a second. I'm kind of working behind there. I'm going into that blue-brown color, keeping my brush so that the paint is going to flow. And I'm going to go, oh, that was really green. I don't know how I got that color. I need to take a little bit more of the, put a little more of the brown over near my blue. And like I said, depending on your blue, it might turn out to be a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to bring some branches coming through here. Now I'm losing my water, so the paint's not flowing. So I just have some branches kind of peeking up in here. So I just touch the surface of my water. This is fine work. And I'm touching the surface of the water. It gives me faded ones as well. And I'm going to bring these down. And I'm going to just get a little bit more faded ones. I'm not adding more pigment. So I'm bringing some of these sort of branchy things off here. If I use a smaller one in the background, it's probably better, a smaller brush. This is a 5. I was working with a 10. I'm going to use a 5 here. And so it just gives me a little bit of a finer line. And I might do, again, without adding more pigment, I'm just adding a little water, just barely touching, and it's just kind of bringing some of these in, and I'm going to pull back down into the, like behind the barn, so that it looks like I've got some trees kind of going behind the barn, very faded off into the distance. So that fade from just adding a little water with that, without washing, and you're not always washing your brush because you want to leave some of that pigment on there. You get these little branches, lots of branches over there, and maybe a few more kind of stuck in there. Maybe these are like, I don't know, a different kind of a tree that they don't really have much of a trunk. Maybe they're just kind of sticking up there. But the more foliage you have in that background, it looks better. I'm going to leave this a little bare. And then I'm going to do a nice bigger one here and a really big one here. Okay? So we'll practice on the little bit bigger one. And we don't have to go too dark because remember, it's a dark, it's not a dark, like bark on a deciduous tree is not dark. It's kind of got a grayish, brownish feel to it. Okay, so here I'm doing this one. Okay, so, oh, sorry, I'm pointing with 2 brushes in my hand. I'm doing this one right in front of that fence. So I'm going right in front of that fence. And I am bringing, I'm going to use my bigger, the bigger number 10. And then I go, as I go into the finer branches, again, blue, brown. And as I go into the finer branches, so I'm starting here, like you want some height, like starting right there, and I'm going to go into the finer branches with that smaller brush. So we have that blue-brown color. I just want a nice kind of And we don't really see the flare at the bottom of the tree so much because we do have some snow there. Okay, that's a lot of pigment. So I'm just going to tap, because I do want it more grayish feeling. So I'm just going to tap that little bit of toilet paper on there just to get off some excess pigment. We're still going to have some white in there. And I'm going to go with my finer brush. This is just a number 5. It's not super fine. And make sure that you're re-energizing the water with it. I'm going to turn my painting slightly to the side so you can see the motion of the brush. And I'm pulling up along the branch and re-dipping in my pigment and a tiny bit of water to make sure these are flowing. I'm going to press on the branch, press on the brush to get a heavier branch. And then, so these, see how it's all coming up nice. And we have lots and lots of branches kind of coming out, but they're all kind of Y's and W's and V's right in front of everything else. And now you're ready for the bigger one. I know this takes a while because this watercolor takes a little while because I do take my time to help you, but we're almost done, I promise. So it just, because I like to take a little extra time out. So this one, I'm going to use my big brush, like the Big 10, and nice and low down here, right here. I'm going to start and bringing it right up, and whooshing right up over everything, almost to the top. Heavy, thick branches in the front, and then I'm gonna have like another branch kind of coming off this way. Okay, and then I'm gonna go into my smaller brush just to get some of those small thingamabobs. Oops, I put that in water. I don't want to leave it in water. And blue brown, and lots of smaller branches. And sometimes we won't always see the branch because there's going to be snow in front. And they can go right over top of those little guys. Okay, but we do see a bit more. And you see we have some little tinier branches coming off at the end, but they follow along and then branch out. Follow along and branch out. So we have more height, more of everything here. And now what we want to do is we're going to put these little shadows into the snow. Okay? So we're working backwards. Again, we're keeping that snow. We're keeping Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. And we're just doing this little, like little shadows, and little tufts of grass can come up too. So little tufts of grass or weeds. So weeds will be bigger in the foreground here. Okay? So I'm going to, with that same color that I used for my branches, I might have some little weeds going on here. Okay? So little weeds kind of coming up. I might even dip in that yellow ochre because weeds can sort of have that color. And just with this fine brush. And very simple. You know, they might come up in a patch. Then we have maybe some weeds kind of close to the fence, kind of coming up, poking out. Because remember, there's still a lot of snow there because the fence is buried, so not a lot's going to be peeking out, and they're small. And we could have like a tuft here going into that yellowy ochre, gray, grizzly brown color, which is kind of the color of the weeds. And here in the foreground, and we haven't touched white yet, but it's already looking like a winter scene, right? And I think I'm done with the little brush. It might not be, I don't know. So I'm going to use, just to get some of these shadows in here, I am going to use my bigger filbert again. Okay? And I want to be really careful. This is where you do want to taste test. You want to have it a little bit kind of watery. So wash. I'm going to go back to the big brush. So even if it's a big squared off brush, it doesn't have to be like a filbert like mine. And I'm going into the blue brown, but I want a slightly bit more blue. See, so I went slightly bit more blue with a fairly wet brush. Okay, so I'm dipping into this corner here. Okay, and I have a fairly wet brush, and I just kind of grabbed some of that pigment. And as in the foreground, the shadow is going to be more definite, so, and a lot less back here. So when you first dip, start in the foreground, and I'm going to move the shadow to the front and to the side. That's not enough shadow. So I need a bit more of that blue black. I'm just kind of mucking it around in there. And I'm wiggling my brush. The shadows in the snow have like a little, they're not straight because there's dips in the snow. And I want a little shadow in where each of these tufts are. Okay, because they're kind of growing out of a shadow. So at the bottom of the tufts, that's what I want. And then maybe the landscape, because maybe it looks like a hill. So it's going this way. So the snow is going this way. Now I'm just adding in some of these shadows here. Just little shadows. I'm going to re-dip and get more shadow over here. And a bit more shadow here. Okay. And then as my brush empties, I'm going to bring a little shadow in between. I'm touching the barn a little bit there, in between there. It was too white there. And I'm going to get some shadow under here. Not as much in the front because not as many trees are creating these shadows. Okay. So I re-dipped, so I want to start in the foreground again. So if you re-dip, start in the foreground to see what you've got. Okay. And put some shadows over here. And then I'm just going to sort of wiggle my brush coming down, just some little shadows through the snow. Nothing right over top of that tree because it's going to have other stuff on it. And then the white is going to finish it off. So the white kind of blends the shadow too. Okay. Now we're going for broke. We're going for white. Go for white. So you could use your number 10, or you could use a slightly bigger brush, okay? So you could use your number 10 for the white gouache. And I always suggest putting the white gouache in a separate container. So I have some white gouache that I always put in here, and then I let it dry out. But it takes a while to reconstitute. I did add some water to it, some clean water to it. So it takes a minute for it to reconstitute. I use hot tap water, but it's good for kind of blending. So it takes a minute to really get it wet, but I'm not going to use that right now. I'm just showing you. I keep it in a cup. I don't waste anything. So I'm going to put some in another little clean cup to show you. And I'll show you how it comes out. It's thick like talc. And sometimes you'll see a rim of a darker color. That's the gum arabic in it. So just give it a shake and that'll go away. And sometimes when you reconstitute it, the gum arabic will come out too, like when you put water in it. So you see, it comes out like toothpaste. It's quite thick, like goopy, goopy, goopy. Okay. And you can, and I always add a little bit of water to it with the clean brush. Try to keep your white white. So I'm just going to clean my brush. I'm going to use my number 10 right now. Use the clean brush, and I kept some clean water back. Otherwise, I just used the same water. And I am going to add a tiny bit of water to it. So I just poured in a tiny bit of water, not too much, because I don't want it too thick right now. I mean, it's hard to work with it when it's really, really, really thick. Okay, we're going to do the burn last because I don't want to get red in the rest of everything. Okay, so everything else we're going to work with this gouache. And so we're going to go thicker with the gouache at the barn and at these fir trees. Okay, here we're going to use like slightly watered down gouache, but also there's another thing that I want to do further in the background with the gouache. Okay, so I put some water in there, and I'm going to use this slightly water. My brush is not clean. It's just a bit too brown, but that's okay. A little bit of brown was coming off. It's fine now. I'm fine. See, I do let you wash your brush sometimes when you're doing watercolors. So I'm just kind of using the waterier side of the gouache right now. I didn't stir it. I just kind of left the water running around there. And I want to get kind of like snow in this background. So in here, way in the back, that's why I'm using the gouache a little bit watery. You see, because remember I said don't worry about that. So in here, and we're just going to kind of go upward and then back down. Up and then back down into that foliage back there. You could even cover some of the because we're using the gouache a little bit watery. It's going to cover, we're not going to go right over top of these trees, but you see I'm just sort of creating almost like a fog back there. You could even use your finger and push it in a bit. And so it almost looks foggy. We're not going all the way up. It's kind of where the snow is on the land, and it's kind of creating a foggy look. And I might even use my finger and kind of tap it around. Okay, so the finger kind of pushes it in and it looks softer. I don't need to do that over here very much because everything was really soft already there. It was just over here. It wasn't looking, and you can see where the white was. Now in here, where I kind of had some little ghost trees, well, not on the ghost tree itself, but these were a little bit less ghosty. I might put a little bit of the watery gouache over top of those trees at the back. The watery gouache, so it's not bright, bright, bright. Okay. Back here, there might have been something. So you see it's starting to kind of bring that foreground in. And then with that, I'm going to go in between here with, like, I'm picking up some color in my gouache now because it's reconstituting some of that color behind it as well. So that's okay. Now here on this deciduous tree, I'm going to use fairly thick, and typically the snow gathers in the Y, but it can stick along the branch a little bit. But it typically gathers in the Y and maybe comes down the trunk a little. And it doesn't hurt to have some white in that trunk. So I'm just kind of gathering. I'm just kind of moving my brush up and down a little bit along those branches because there might be a little Y that I didn't foresee, you know? And on the fence post, of course, on the very top, you've got some going on there. And of course on here. And then I'm going to get that right over lots and lots and lots on the greenery. And remember, these are clumps. It's not a cross section. It is not a stripe. Lots in the front. And it's not a bunch of dabs. They're clumps. We're not doing snowflakes. We're gonna do some snow splatter in a bit. Okay. So you see how it's coming all together, looking like a winter scene. The thicker the gouache now, the better. And you could, sometimes it goes right across. Sometimes the snow goes downward, remember? And we're just kind of dabbing it on with this big brush. Or with the number 10. Right off the side. Kind of filling in. And the clumps can kind of face downward a bit as the branches get heavy. They're sitting above the branch, above where we left space for that snow. We do not see that trunk. Okay, I don't want to see stripes going across. No stripes. It does not look natural. And with our wet brush, with the wetter part of the gouache, I just touched the wetter part of the gouache in. I'm just going to sort of rub it over the shadows. Just rub it over the shadows to kind of melting the shadows into the background, melting the shadows of the snow into the background. So I'm just using that white watery gouache to kind of play with the shadows. So I just kind of started from that side and I'm heading this way now. And I get a little bit more white gouache here. I'm going to avoid like I said, I'm going to avoid the red burn, and I'm staying with my watery. So you see the water, see where I'm going here with the shadows? It looks a little more natural than the shadows do over here because I've just sort of let the white gouache, the watery part of the gouache, kind of blend that shadow in. That was a bit dark, so I'm just going to cover that with a little bit of the gouache. A little bit of the heavier gouache. And I can go up to the barn. I'm just not doing the barn. I'm not touching. Just don't touch the red. Just pa. So watery here. And bringing, now you can see the brush stroke in the gouache. So it goes the same way sort of the hill goes, I guess. And if you want to put a bit more shadow in, you can. But don't overdo that shadow because it's real. Then you'd have to go back with your gouache. There is no English word for gouache. Gouache is gouache is gouache. It's spelled G-O-U, gouache, A-C-H. And then, here we go. Right, and then maybe a little bit thicker right in front of those weeds. A little bit thicker. And then, of course, thick here. And then on these little trees, the thick part of the gouache. You can actually barely see the tree because you've got so much snow on these tiny little trees. You just kind of know they're there. Because you got some little bits of green sticking out. And, of course, we don't need on those major ghost trees. And lots in the crook of this tree. My brush, it can go, like sticky snow can also kind of stick onto the up and down parts of the branch as well. but lots in the crook of the tree, like gobs of it in the crook of the tree. Okay, so lots and lots. And the crook kind of comes down. Not so much in the fine upper branches. But sometimes it can stick to the thick branch. And then with thick gouache, just bring a drift right across the front of that tree. And you might want to bring a branch going across there. See, it's all sort of starting to come together. It's looking so much better. And as soon as we get that snow on, and you can, so I'm going to do the under part first. Okay, so the under part, and you might get, so I'm using it thick, and watch, I'm going to actually push the gouache close to the red, so I'm not picking up as much red. So I'm just kind of pushing the gouache into the red, and see, I'm just kind of pushing. Then I'm going to take a little bit of that blue-brown shadow and just kind of muck it up a bit, because where it's kind of drifting close to there, you're getting lots of shadows, and just kind of pulling that down a bit. And we have that right up to the front. And then we could get a little bit over top, see, over top of the barn door, and over top of this door, and on the window sill. So not on top of the window, on the window sill. Okay, so on the window sill, we get a little, and then on top of the door, and on top of this door, and then for the roof, I'm actually going to roll it off my brush. So I'm going to kind of roll it toward the red. Okay, so I'm just rolling it gently in my fingers. So I'm rolling it as I pull down toward the red. So I'm not picking up any red in my brush at all. Picking up more of this. And I do want a little bit of blue in that snow. So I'm going to take a little hint of blue and just kind of touch it every once in a while without, I don't want to see dabs of blue in the snow. I just want to see hints of blue. I just don't want to see light blue. So you see how it's just kind of floating off there. And the gouache will stay fairly thick because it has talc in it, like chalk. So I'm going to roll this off. And if you get a goopy part, that's fine. I've already got blue in there, so I don't need to add any. But I'm going to clean that blue off a little more because I have too much blue. Drying my brush off if I clean it, and making sure to get that goopy white gouache. And you could have a goopier side to it. There's almost too much blue in that, but we'll see. I could like add a little blue down here just to kind of offset that. And then I'm going to do snow splatter with my white gouache. Snow splatter with your white watercolor doesn't work as well. So you want it fairly dry, or sorry, fairly wet. So I actually use, as my tube is drying out a bit, or as I'm losing it, I'll just suck up some dark in there and shake it really well, and then add that onto that. And that's going to give me a nice bit for snow splatter. because there's an art to snow splatter. And I'm putting paper towel across my whole computer. Even though the gouache will wash out, it's still a pain in the butt. Because gouache is a bit thicker. And I'm going to use the big brush and make sure it's clean from any of the dark colors. And I'm going to go a bit flatter. Bring this down. And so what I would do, so you want to get it fairly wet and you want it start low down and just keep your brush close and flick up. Don't flick down, flick your fingers up. Okay, dip again. You want, so this is fairly watery. Okay, and if you get too big a gob, just take a little toilet paper. I just got a big gob at the very, very, very top. I'm going to take a little toilet paper and just take it off. So I start low, and then as I get the idea of where it's going to go finer, but keep it low because it will splatter everywhere. Keep it low to start, and then when you get the fine spray, go up. I'm pulling up on my finger. Don't keep one thing straight, like keep your brush straight. And there we go. I'm going to pull up now. And the snow splatter just makes it. Just a sec. I want to get a bit more on there. I know I'm doing it wrong, but I'm doing it upside down here. And make sure you go around all the sides. It's harder when you're going upright. A lot harder. But you want to get it everywhere and lots of the fine splatter in the back. There we go. And try and get my fingers a bit clean. Okay. So then when you take the tape off, take it off carefully. Yeah. This is a little bit of a longer one. Sorry. I'll edit it for YouTube and I can figure that out. When you take if you did tape it down, which you don't need to, take it off carefully when it's wet. Because otherwise, sometimes the gouache can stick and it can pull your paper. Pull away gently from your thing here, from your painting. I never, like I said, I never, ever tape it down. But I just do for when I'm demoing. Because as you saw, I was pulling my painting every which way. And then if you're painting, your painting will be warped. Your paint will be, or your paper will be warped. Just put clean, like when it's dry, put clean water on the back with a little clean paper towel. Then lay dry paper towel on top, and then flatten it with books and stuff, and it'll be perfectly dry, and it'll be amazing. So there you go. I know sometimes the tape gives it a little bit of an extra frame, which people like, but you don't have to do that. So Rhonda, you're funny. Can't wait till you see this foreign land. That's funny. Okay, I'll look forward to it. I look forward to seeing your foreign land. It'll be Florida with snow. Okay, so I'm going to end the stream now. 8 people stuck with me till the end. Thank you. I know it was a long one, but it's stages, right? Like you got to go in stages, and I like to go slow with the watercolor. So take care, everyone. Toodaloo.